We are live.
All right, a very, very good morning to all of you. My name is Anand Prasad. I'm the founder and managing director of SkillSphere Education. And as always, we are very proud to be coming up with our next iteration of SkillSphere eMUN today, the Afghan Summit. Now, before we start off and move on with this panel discussion that we have with three amazing personalities today, and I'd not like to take the spotlight away from them. Today is all about their stories and the impact that their stories will have on you. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my entire story with Afghanistan. Afghanistan has probably been the headline for the most unfortunate reasons over the past 2 months in every international and national newspaper in every part of the world. And of course, the Taliban has taken over government. They're still figuring out ways in which the government will run. Right now, there is a transitional government in place. A lot of individuals have had to flee from Afghanistan owing to potential persecution by the Taliban, owing to a potential violation of rights by Afghanistan, and a bunch of other such situations which are prevalent. There is a lack of internal security in many places, possibilities of a civil war. So unfortunately, Afghanistan as a country is in doldrums today, and we can only pray that situations get better. But as far as my story with Afghanistan is concerned, well, my tryst and my love story with this country goes back at least 8 years from now, when I met my first set of friends from Afghanistan in Hyderabad University and Osmania University. One of them has joined us today. He's one of my closest friends. And we had a great time. I learned so much about the culture in Afghanistan. I learned so much about them as a population. And they are very proud people, just like us in India and any other part of the world. They're very proud of their country. At the end of the day, everybody wants to live in their own country. Nobody likes to live like a refugee. They're being forced into such situations. And hence, when this situation took place in Afghanistan in most recent times, it became an even bigger problem. It became a very, very big problem for me, especially because I had so many of my friends like Munir who suddenly had to find a place to move to. And trust me, I've done a lot of work with the Youth Thinkers Society that Munir runs in Afghanistan. I've done a lot of work. I've trained a lot of students in Afghanistan. And I see, the spark in their eyes to want to learn, to develop, to grow, just like all of you students who are joining us today. Unfortunately, though, their lives have been turned upside down through different political situations and developments that have taken place. And one can only hope that this gets better soon. Keeping all of these things in mind, I decided that the need of the hour today is actually to be organizing a summit that focuses specifically on this situation. And that's the reason we came up with the Afghan Summit. Students, delegates, this is not a summit where you all are going to play the Taliban and the United States of America and throw pot shots at each other. The Afghan Summit has 5 committees which are focusing on developmental work for the people of Afghanistan. Knowing the new reality, what is it that we as an international population can do to help all those who are stuck in different transit camps, all of those who are not able to move out of Afghanistan, and for all of those who will stay in Afghanistan, making sure that their human rights are upheld. We as a community can do a lot of things to make sure these things happen. And today, we have started off the Afghan Summit with a panel discussion involving 3 of these individuals who will share their stories so that you get inspired and so that you all can make a very, very tangible change to making sure that Afghanistan maintains its soul as a nation which is vibrant, and as a nation which has amazing people like these 3 who are joining us today. So without much ado, let me quickly introduce our 3 panelists for the day. Let me start off by introducing Sadiqa to all of you. Sadiqa Fahimi is a Fulbright scholar and has a master's degree in innovation management and entrepreneurship. She worked with different international organizations and the Afghanistan government. Sadiqa currently is based out of the United States of America. She had to move to the East Coast of the United States of America about 2 to 3 weeks back during this entire process of movement of people out of Afghanistan. And Sadiqa, thank you so much for joining us today and for agreeing to share your experiences, views, and story with us. We also have with us Munir Koshani. Munir Koshani is, before I introduce him as anything else, he's somebody you have a lot of personal fondness. So we are extremely close. We don't get to meet. We've not met in the past 7-8 years, I think. We used to meet quite a bit in college. We met on these model UN circuits. I'd gone in for an MUN to his university, Chaitanya Bharati Institute of Technology, CBIT, and he was my co-chair there. We became supremely close then, and from there on, our relationship has just grown leaps and bounds. We've done a lot of work together, and more importantly, forgetting about the work, I don't know, we have a relationship that goes beyond just professional work. I feel extremely close to him, and we are always just a phone call away. And I'm so glad that Munir was able to find his way to the United States of America in transit to Canada. And he's one of the most inspirational people for me, honestly speaking. Over the years, he's done a lot of work in Afghanistan. He founded the Youth Thinker Society, through which he started training a lot of students across some of the most remote areas in Afghanistan. He also held the Pamir International Model United Nations, one of Afghanistan's first Model UN conferences, one of the biggest, which was extremely celebrated, and started an entire movement of development of public speaking skills and 21st century skills among their students. So Munir is somebody who's an extremely decorated individual, has studied in India, traveled multiple countries, very well experienced about different situations, and definitely has very clear opinions, which I'm sure he'll be sharing us with us today. Thank you so much, Munir, for joining us. And last but not the least, we have Adiba Juya, who's joining us. Adiba Juya has done her economics from OC Academy in Central Asia. Currently, she is in New Delhi, in India itself. And very soon, she probably might relocate to another country where she plans to pursue her further studies. At present, she's also doing a data science course from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the MIT University at the moment. So thank you so much, Adiba, for joining us today. So we have Munir, Adiba, and Sarika, who have joined us. I hope everything will go off well from here. And I'd quickly like to jump into the panel discussion, so we have enough of time for students to ask your questions as well. Students, I would only like to tell you, please be sensitive while asking questions. All three of these individuals have gone through a lot of trials and tribulations over past 3, 4, 5 weeks, especially. All of them are in different forms of transit camps or in transit to different countries. And they have a clear situation, a clear understanding of the situation. They are the ones who have experienced it. All right. So they are sharing their stories. They've been kind enough to agree to share their stories with us so that they can sensitize a larger group of people. But please do be sensitive to the situation. We are extremely grateful to all of you for joining us today. Thank you so much. Let's quickly jump in. I'd like to ask the first question to Munir. Munir, let's quickly start off with a very simple question. What are your views on the situation in Afghanistan today?
Thank you, Anand. Hi, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. And thank you for the very, very informative introduction. I have been in India. I was there for 4 years, and I've traveled to, I don't know, like 20 states of India or 20 cities of India, if I say. I've learned a lot from India, how the culture is very much diverse. I've learned from them how we can, two different kinds of people, two different ethnicity, two different religion can live together in harmony, in peace, which lacks in most part of the world. And one of them is Afghanistan. So my view on Afghanistan at the moment, or someone who has been there for a very long time and have worked with both school students and university students, as well as other youth of the country. So whatever we hear from the news, whatever something comes as a crisis in Afghanistan, be it a war, be it toppling the government, or doing anything, it all takes a root in how the society of Afghanistan works, actually, how the people are different, how different hands, foreign and both local hands, are working to make sure that these people will not live in peace and in harmony. So that's I think the main cause for all of these destructions from the very beginning. If you go and read the chapters of history for Afghanistan, you only will get one thing, and that is that there has been a lot of problems between the different ethnicities of the country, different religion groups of the country, and even those who speak different languages. And then also you realize that in all of these there were engagements from different countries, from different other nationalities, from different other both local and international actors that were involved in trying to destabilize Afghanistan for their own profit. Say, for example, in the early 19th century, we had involvement of like the British India, or we can say the government of the British Raj. We had their involvement. They had their part in Afghanistan and also Iran and all those. That's why they were in close competition with the czars of Russia, or the czars of Russia was there at that time. But when they were done with this,
Right.
and then there was the problem of Soviet and the Americans. And then once the Soviets and Americans were done, then there was the problem of Americans and the Chinese. And so it's like, uh, every now and then different superpowers are trying to use that land or that piece of land, because that land doesn't have anyone to own it. So if I put it this way, like Pakistan has a stable government, at least they have a strong military. Iran has a strong governance. So like a lot of people have some of the benefits, but for us, the ethnicity tension, the religious tension has made us weak. And therefore, I believe a lot of other countries are actually misusing that, trying to use that for their own profit. And at the end of the day, it's the Afghan people. When a crisis comes, it doesn't differentiate whether you're a ethnicity A or ethnicity B, whether you're following religion A or religion B. They don't differentiate that. They just, the crisis comes and everybody's like, their whole life is gone. So that is, I think, that's my view of that. That's my understanding of the root of the crisis in Afghanistan. On the recent crisis, I believe it was 12th of August, if I am not wrong. We met at our office, at our YTS office, the Youth Thinker Society office. So we were planning to organize a mega Model UN conference for 2021. And it was supposed to be in the first or second week of September. So we were planning as well. How the planning has started a long ago, but the final
Right.
touches to the conference, how this is going to happen, whom are we going to invite, and how this is going to. So it was just 3 days before the fall of Kabul. I don't know. I think it was. I don't exactly remember the day, but it was, I think, Friday. It was 13th of August. 13th of August, it was a Friday. So just 2 days before the conference, our whole team, we met together, we discussed, we brainstormed, we actually charted out as what are we going to do for the next 1 month to organize the conference. But none of us knew that will be our last meeting, because since then we have never been to our office. So it all happened very quickly, very, very quickly. So on the day that Kabul failed to the Taliban, I went to the bank because I needed some cash for some expenses, and I went to the bank in the morning, like 9 a.m., and then I was there till 11 a.m. The bank was closed. And there were around 1,000 people in front of the bank. Everybody was fighting to go inside to get some cash. So then it was 11:30 a.m. Then I called a friend of mine who was living somewhere like close to the border of Kabul. I just called him, hey, what's happening? And then he told me that the Taliban has taken the control of their district. I was like shocked, but because that was not supposed to happen. They were not supposed to enter Kabul for at least a month. But then I rushed. I left the bank and I rushed to reach to home. I drove to home, and the whole street, the whole roads were packed of people walking because there were no cars, there were no taxi, there were nothing was there. So everybody was just walking, around to just get their to homes. So a whole crisis has started at that point of time. And then we were at our homes. I was at the office trying to destroy some of the documents that had names of my team. So because I had to actually disable the Facebook pages of my organization. I had to disable the all the documents that have pictures and names of my team member or my staff. So we were busy doing that. And then what happened? I was there till 2 3 p.m. and then suddenly we heard that the government has collapsed. Nothing is there, and the president, the so-called president, has escaped the country with his team, with his close aides. So from then onwards, nothing was in our hands, nothing was in the government hands. The streets were filled with Taliban, and that's it. The whole thing fell apart within just few hours. And then from then onwards, people started to realize what has happened, and then people started to think about their future, because you see a lot of people who had to flee the country. They were scared because they were very much exposed in social media for what they were doing, for what they were standing, for what they were defending in the country. They were scared. What if they 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 find us? Because you can't trust what they see. They have announced like public amnesty, but public amnesty, but they're not following that. But no, because nobody trusts them. They have announced that they won't harm anyone. They have announced that they won't harm anyone who have worked in the government, in the military, in the police, in the social, civil society, or anyone. They won't harm anyone. That's their message. But then when we see in reality or in the ground, that's not true. They're actually trying to find people who have worked with the international agencies for development. They are looking for people who have spoken against the Taliban. They are looking for people who are advocating for the rights of women, for the rights of children, or for the rights of different genders in Afghanistan. So they're looking for them. So the whole idea was like, okay, should I stay? Should I trust what they're saying? Or should I just find a way to escape, to just leave everything, to leave my whole life here and just go? So that was the problem, or that was the main thinking that we had at that time. What should we do? Should we stay or should we leave? Then me and my family found the quickest way, not the quickest, but a way to go to the airport. I'm sure a lot of you have seen those scenes from the airport, how difficult it was to reach to the airport. Let me tell you that day what happened to us when we received a call from Canada that your asylum cases has been approved. You can now actually travel to Canada, but you have to reach to the airport on your own. Nobody's going to help you till there. So we had to actually crawl a distance of 300 meters, and we crossed that distance in 15 to 16 hours. That's like not even like half kilometer, right? If you walk, it will be just 5 minutes or 3 minutes. But because the whole area was under Taliban, it was packed, jam-packed. A lot of people were there and a lot of difficulties. So we had to cross that just 300 meters. We had to cross that distance in like 15 to 16 hours. So we started at 7 a.m. and we reached to the final destination at 10 p.m. like tired and thirsty and hungry. So that was the situation. It was horrible. A lot of people died of suffocation. A lot of kids were there, children, newborn children were there because the families, they were leaving because So a lot of people died there in front of our own eyes. They just, they couldn't breathe anymore at that congested place. So that was the situation. And then from then onwards, we were at the airport for 2 nights, sleeping on the gravel, like whatever we could find, a carton just to sleep on it. And then after 2 days, we were evacuated by the Americans and Canadians to Qatar, and then to Germany, and now in the US. So now we have fled the country. We are the survivors, and there's this guilt of survivors here as well, because you have left a lot of your stuff behind. You have left a lot of your friends behind. You have left a lot of your family, your whole thing behind. But at least you have this feeling that, okay, if I reach to my final decision, then from there onwards, I might be able to help at least some of them whom I can help. So that was, I mean, if I keep going on and tell the whole story, it's going to take like days. But this was the summary as how I'm sure I've spoken a lot too.
Right. No, not at all, Munir.
That was the quickest way to tell the story of how I fled the country, and how what was our thinking at that time, like what was going on in our minds. There was a question of staying here or leaving, trusting Taliban for what they're saying, because those all questions were there in your head, and then you had to decide. It was not just yourself. You had to decide for your family. You have to decide for your staff members. You have to decide for your friends, because they're all connected to you. So, all those things. You have to burn whatever you have, worked in the past. I had to destroy because the internet was quite slow. We couldn't upload all the pictures and videos on cloud. So we had to destroy the laptops, the hard drives. We had to destroy the hard disks, like. So the pictures, the videos, and everything was just gone, So those were the situation that we had to take care to make sure that none of our staff members or our volunteers or our team members should be endangered in the future.
What did those hard drives?
I'll just finish it here. If there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Munir. We'll quickly move on to the next. We'll be entertaining questions in some time. Munir, thank you so much. It was a very, very powerful story that you have just shared with us. It's very unfortunate. These trials and tribulations, students, for us to listen to is one thing. For them to go through it and really experience what has happened is totally another thing. Crawling through 300 meters across 2 days, sleeping on cardboards. And this is just not Munir's story. It's multiple other people's stories, unfortunately. And he talked about something very interesting. He talked about, the guilt of survivors as well, leaving their friends and families behind. Everybody who feels that people from different parts of the world that are affected want to get to the United States of America or Afghanistan are wrong. Or Canada are wrong. People actually want to be with their friends, family, just like we like to be in India. It's the same situation. You do not actually differentiate among countries. At the end of the day, people are there because of their friends, their families, who unfortunately are getting affected as a result of it. Another very interesting thing that Munir talked about is how unfortunately Afghanistan has been a land which has not had a stable military or a stable government over recent history, at least. And it has been in many ways an area which has been a center for international intervention in different ways, whether it was the Soviets and the United States, or after that, different local chieftains to the Taliban, to the United States, and now the United States, China, Pakistan, bunch of other countries have always unfortunately meddled with the situation, which has at the end of the day affected the people. In my opinion, before we go into blaming the Taliban or blaming the US, what we need to understand is that at the end of the day, it's the people who are getting affected. That said, Adiba, I'd be grateful if you could also share your story with us and share your views on Afghanistan at the moment with the students.
Yeah, sure. My story is quite the same, but with a little of some more information. Thanks to Munir for highlighting some important information about evacuation. I'm sure so many of the students who are present here, they have witnessed, saw those videos online, the airport, what was going on in the airport, and how so many people who have evacuated. But I want to also highlight here that this is not the story of, this is just a very small part of people who have been evacuated. Afghanistan is a land where more than 30 million people are living there, and 36, maybe some of them have been evacuated, but there are so many people who are still there. Their lives, their future, everything is at risk. My story, I actually have been through so much chaos in the past 2 months. First of all, I was looking around. So I was just getting into everything. I was applying for some visas at the same time. I don't know, like it started all gradually, started from one province and then the other province, it was collapsing one after another. And what my imagination was, and everybody else around was telling me that Kabul is not gonna collapse. Maybe this is just a matter of few provinces and it's gonna finish and things gonna be all right, because we have 300,000 militaries and not 60, 70,000. They can absolutely stand against 60,000 the groups of Taliban, who are actually the terrorists, community who used to be called as terrorists for the past 20 years in Afghanistan. And I was still thinking, okay, everything is gonna be fine. So I was super excited about my new job. I resigned my previous job, which was in Lapis Strategic Communication. It's a unit in the movie media company. I resigned that job and I was about to join Ministry of Finance as a senior economist. I was newly appointed there and I was about to join in the first week of September. When I resigned, I was like, okay, I'm gonna take 1 week leave and then I'm gonna come here. Then what happened on 14th of August, I remember that I went to the bank because I just wanted to get out of my home and that go around the city and explore the city, and at the same time cash out some money from the bank, because everybody is so under chaos, I wanted to explore the city as well for my own exploration, because Kabul is the city I have grown up in. Maybe I have traveled for my education, I have went out, but I came back there, I lived all my life, and I was like, I have to see what's going on there before everything is going dangerous, because 14th of August was already a day earlier than the time when Kabul was collapsed, And then I saw, okay, let's go. I went out and I was walking on the streets of Sharnau. It's an area in Kabul. And there was a look of disparate looks everywhere. People were, I never saw people in Afghanistan that sad in Kabul, in my city, People were so sad. And I remember, when all the provinces got collapsed to the hands of Taliban, people got displaced. They all came to the capital. They came to the Kabul. And Kabul was overpopulated. I left home 6 in the morning and I was in traffic till 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, I reached to the bank, and my turn reached 4 in the evening, in the afternoon. And I was standing there and I didn't know what to do. I was coming outside and I was sitting there and I don't know, I was crying, tearing up, because I never saw my city that upset. And then I decided overnight that I have to just leave Kabul. And on 15th of August, I left Kabul. On 15th of August, exactly in the same hours, Kabul collapsed. We were in the aeroplane, and the people were. I was talking with my uncle over the phone, and they were saying, "Dashtabarchi area is already taken. This area is already taken." And I thought, okay, maybe this plane is not gonna fly. But yeah, it was until we flew to India, and when I reached to India, I've got connection internet, and I just heard that Kabul is absolutely collapsed, And this entire situation was very much chaotic for me because I was not sleeping overnight. My family was not sleeping. And right now I have so many of my family members back there. I mean, it's not about only that. Sometimes my Afghan fellows can understand this because we have been going through a lot of crisis, disasters over the past 20 years. We know how to do crisis management. It's one of, actually, we are so mastering this because there are lots of crises we have been going through. I mean, like the fight going on in Afghanistan, the war, of internal of problems among the ethnic problems and other issues. But I think most of all, what's important is that for us, for now, what's important is that once you face such kind of situation, you will understand that what it means that you have so many people around there. You know, you're not comfortable anymore. I'm here. I feel safe, but I'm occupied mentally, physically. I mean, I'm overall, I think I'm maintained with there, and I have my uncles, my aunts, my grannies, they're all there, and my friends, of course, my people. So yeah, in certain extent, there are lots of things that you learn from throughout the process when you're facing crisis. But at the same time, it's of it paved a way, opportunity for some of the people who could get out of Afghanistan on point. Some people who have been a part of the government and international community, but still there are so many people who are lived there who have been working with as activists, as their lives are truly at risk. I am a former employee of a movie group. Movie is like Tolo and other media companies are there, and so many of announcers there, and they're my friends, and I've been calling. I'm talking to them. They're saying that we're still in Afghanistan. I wonder what's going to happen to them, and how they're able to get out of there. You know, because I think they are media faces. They are the people who have been always talking to people throughout the media, and their faces are familiar. And I think they should they're still stuck there. You know, maybe some of people from the management level, they got opportunity to get out, but they're still there, and I'm so worried about them. Yeah, pretty much this.
Thank you so much, Adiba, for sharing your story. You were able to get out on 15th of August from Afghanistan in the situation when Afghanistan was still falling. Probably you did not go through the experience that Munir did, but your experience in itself is so harrowing. And of course, the fact that you talked about a very interesting thing. There are a lot of groups of people who are very vulnerable in the current situation with Taliban. Of course, we are talking about women, we are talking about children, but also people who are involved in arts, culture, different areas of education, and of course the media. Afghanistan had a very bustling film industry coming up. In fact, there are a lot of collaborations with different individuals from India. Kabir Khan had made a movie called Kabul Express a few years back, and he in fact was helping a lot with the entire situation in Afghanistan, trying to build up the industry as well. I read a very interesting interview of this film director from India called Kabir Khan, who was working, and he talked about how there are so many people who are vulnerable, who are suffering from so many different situations. So just hope for the best, Adiba. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Sadiqa, could you go ahead and share your experiences too, please?
Hi everyone, do you hear me?
Yes, we do hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for invitation, and thank you, Munir, for introducing us to this great event. So I will tell a little bit about my life. I grew up in a small village in rural areas of Afghanistan, and I fought for education. I fought for going to school, going to college, going to traveling abroad. I fought a lot with my family, with my relatives. It was so much sacrifice for me, And when I got a Fulbright scholarship in 2017, and I traveled to United States in 2018 and studied innovation management and entrepreneurship. And when I returned to Afghanistan in 2020, I had hope. I was so hopeful. I'm going to start a business. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to, do something for my people. I'm going to create jobs for people who need. And that was when I bought a machine from Malaysia and brought it to recycle plastic and make reusable stuff like brick. But those hopes, all those hopes collapsed, and all those hope burned, and and vanished. And August 15, 2021, when I was just sitting at home and working, and I received a call from my sister. She was on the street. I was going to pick another of my sister from school, and she said that Taliban took over. Taliban is here. They are firing on our car, and she was in a car with her friend and with my another sister. The Taliban fired, and there was some firing, and I think the Taliban was firing to the police car, but the bullet hit their car, and her friend got injured, and they were screaming in the street and calling for help. But I was not able to leave the house to go and to run, to go and do something to help them, because I was a woman, and I was thinking, oh no, I cannot go out. It's not safe for me. I cannot do anything. So I was calling my friends who were male. I was like, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? If you can go, and my sisters are here and they need help. And everybody was like, that was the worst day. Everybody was saying, oh, I am here. I'm stuck here. I'm stuck here. And there was no one to help them. And it was the worst feeling I ever experienced in my life, because I was helping my sister, I was supporting my sisters all in my whole life. And that was the situation. I couldn't help them because I was so helpless, because I was a woman. And that is the situation nowadays in Afghanistan. If you're a woman, you cannot do anything. You have to sit in your house. You cannot go to school. You cannot work. That's women in under control of Taliban are like that. So I got some help from one of my colleagues, and she would live in close to the place my sister were, and she ran and saved my sister that day, and I'm so thankful of her. And my journey to leave Afghanistan, it was very difficult. As like Munir, my mom, I was trying to not leave the country, because I had to take my mother and two other brothers and my dad with me, but I couldn't, because they didn't have documents, and I was not trying to leave, but my mom forced me to leave because she was saying that it's not safe for me. And that was, it's the same as Munir. I stayed more at the airport, almost 4 nights and 4 days, because of there were so many people, and getting through alone, 2 women. I came with my sister. It was very difficult. There was so much shooting, and Taliban beat my sister again, poor her. It was a very tough time, but we passed. We are safe now. We have the same girl as Munir mentioned. It's like, I'm thinking why I didn't brought my brother, why I didn't brought my sister, why my mom is not with me, why my father is not with me. And every time there is, every time I call my mom and she's not online, it just gets so much, worried. Why is she's not online? Why she's not online? What happened to her? Where is my brother? Where is my father? So there's a lot of going on. It's a tough time. And the bad thing is that every time you open social media, you receive worse news from Afghanistan. Taliban is not allowing Health Security School. Taliban replaced the Minister of Minister of Foreign Affairs with some ministry that there is no need for it. Or they don't allow women to go to work. They tortured a Hazara, poor guy in the street. They killed a man who didn't do anything. So, and that is the situation in Afghanistan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sadika. It is a very, very eye-opening story. It's a very touching story. It's a very disturbing story as well. And students, all I can say is that I hope that we keep all of these people from Afghanistan in our prayers. All right, there are families that have unfortunately been torn. Sadika is talking about it. She's talking about how every time she doesn't see her mother online, it is definitely a cause for concern. We can only pray to make sure that situations improve, especially for women. An interesting news piece that I read yesterday about Afghanistan is that, interestingly, women are not allowed into the Ministry of Women now. All the women workers have been banned from entering the Ministry of Women. So that probably just explains, the current situation that, women are going through in Afghanistan. And there have been just such major transitions from the times in 2002-3 when the US took over to now. It's all of a sudden like your life has toppled within a matter of a few days. Nobody expected the Afghan government to flee the way it did and for the Taliban to take over. But the situation is so bad, Sadika, we can only pray for you and we hope the best takes place. In fact, there was this one poem that I was reading, written by Negin Badaksh in Pashto. It has been translated into English. It has 4 lines, which I think are very powerful. And I'd like to address those lines before we allow the students to ask all of you some questions. It's called Not More, Not Less, We Want Equality by Negin Badaksh. She said, do not idolize me on high pedestals and do not chain my luscious hair. She said, do not idolize me on high pedestals. Do not chain my luscious hair. Do not imprison me in cages and make my life bitter, and do not place sweets at the corner of the cage either. All right, I think these 4 lines are very, very powerful. But Negin is basically saying is, we are not wanting to be elevated, and we definitely don't want to be caged either. And most importantly, don't cage us and offer us with sweets in the cage so that we feel like we are happy. At the end of the day, a liberation, freedom, equality are very, very important things that honestly many of us in India take for granted. All right. Today in Afghanistan, these situations are not so easy, and we can only pray the situations improve soon. Students, Adiba, Sadika, and Munir have shared their experiences. I'm sure they have been very serious eye-openers for you. One thing that I'd like to talk about with respect to Sadika's entire story as well is you need to understand a little bit about the ethnicity of Afghanistan. All right. Afghanistan, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Adiba, Sadika, and Munir, Afghanistan majorly comprises of 4 to 5 major communities. All right. We have the Pashtuns, who form the majority of people in Afghanistan. Beyond that, we have the Uzbeks, if I'm not wrong, who form a large population as well. I think only 7%. The Pashtuns are over 70%. The Uzbeks are 7 to 8%. The Hazaras are about 9%. And then we have a section of Tajiks. We have a section of Turkmens. And then there are people from other nationalities as well. All right.
Just to add on that, Anand, because so that's always a quite like debatable who has the majority in Afghanistan. Because there was no clear statistics from the whole population of Afghanistan, and that's why it has always been a point of debate, and also nobody has come to a conclusion to define as who actually is the majority in Afghanistan.
Right.
If you comprise all the other ethnicities, they are more than 60 to 65%.
Wow. Okay. All right.
But it doesn't say that the Pashtuns are the majority. They are the larger population, but not the majority, because of the border issue with Pakistan that we have.
Right.
Like in Afghanistan, we hardly will have around 10 million Pashtuns.
Right.
But on the other side of border in Pakistan, we have more than 50 million Pashtuns.
Right.
Or
Right.
Pashtuns who speak Pashto, who are like,
Right.
follow the same religion and in fact and also the same culture as Afghans.
Right.
So they have always been used as a tool to cross the border whenever there was any kind of voting, whenever there was any kind of census
Right.
or anything. That's why the open border has created an issue as how better to decide as who should be the majority and who should be the minority. Yes, we do have religious minorities. That is true. So yeah, that was just my
Thank you so
opinion
much,
on
Munir.
that.
That's an eye opener because statistically, we are often misled. Now we understand where these statistics are coming from. There is a porous border that Afghanistan shares with Pakistan. On the other side of Pakistan, that's basically northwestern Pakistan. There's the federally administered tribal areas, which honestly Pakistan is also not totally in control of. That's where some of these major networks like the Haqqani network, which
True.
now is a major part of Taliban, actually come
Yeah.
from. So you don't really know
Tehrik-e-Taliban.
whether Sirajuddin Haqqani is a Talib from Afghanistan or a Talib from Pakistan. So that's absolutely true. But what I'd like to tell you is that one of the most persecuted communities, unfortunately, in Afghanistan under the Talibs are Hazaras. And in fact, I know for a fact that there's persecution across all minorities, but the Hazaras are extremely persecuted. Munir, being a Hazara as well, would you like to share a little bit about this? It's just a good eye opener for the students.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So because Hazara community, so if you say Uzbek or if you say Tajik or if you say Turkmen or if you say any other ethnicity in Afghanistan, they are in minority, but in terms of ethnicity, but they are the same in terms of religion or sect. So in Islam, we have two main sects. One is the Sunni and the other is the Shia. So I can say that almost all other ethnicities in Afghanistan are Sunni. It's the Hazaras that are Shia. So the Hazaras are basically being persecuted from both sides. Like the people who say they have been targeted as both Hazara and as well as Shia because they don't follow the same religion, and that's why they have been persecuted in the 1990s. I mean, the previous time when Taliban took over Afghanistan in 1996, they tortured and killed more than thousands of people in northern province of Mazar-e-Sharif. They were saying one thing to Hazara people: either you have to convert to Islam or die. I mean, they were not thinking that these people are also Muslim. They believe in the same God that they believe. They follow the same prophet that they follow. They have the same holy book that they have. Just because they were Shia and Hazaras, so that was the only word that they used, the only sentence to them: either you convert to Islam. Their interpretation of Islam was that only the Sunni Islam is the main Islam. So either you have to convert to Sunni or you have to die. And through that, they killed thousands of people. They were lying on the streets for weeks. Nobody was there to bury them even. So there's a whole story behind that massacre that happened in Mazar-e-Sharif. And not only in Mazar-e-Sharif, even on the way when they were traveling, they used to be taken hostages and they used to be killed. Not even at that time, even after that, even like since 2001 to 2021, there were around thousands of attacks on Shia mosques, on Shia, this Muharram, Ashura.
Right. We celebrate Muharram.
Celebrations.
Muharram it's an event in India too. Yes.
Yeah, it's also happening in Mumbai, in almost all cities of India. So they were attacking that. They were attacking the schools. There was this recent attack on a school which took life of more than 90 young kids, girls, all of them. So those were all in the neighborhood of Shia community. So they were the target. So they have been persecuted from a very long time,
Right. Absolutely.
hundreds of
Yes.
years now.
It's very unfortunate.
Yeah, that's, there was this, remember Anand, we were talking about the kite runner. I mean, there they have, Khalid Hosseini has explained about this in his own terms. Yeah, so those are the things that,
Absolutely.
is the problem in Afghanistan at the moment.
Right. In fact, if you really want to learn a little bit more at a very basic level, Khalid Hosseini has explained the entire ethnic distribution of Afghanistan, the situation against Hazaras through this beautiful movie and book called The Kite Runner. A Thousand Splendid Suns is another book that gives a lot of good perspective on the situation in Afghanistan. Another very good book that I've read recently on Afghanistan is this book called The Pearl That Broke Its Shell. It's actually written by a US congresswoman from Afghanistan, of Afghan origin. I think her name is Nadia Hashimi. She's written this book called The Pearl That Broke Its Shell. It's a very good book. These are good books that you can definitely read. That said, let's quickly move to questions. There are a lot of questions I know students want to ask. Parth, go ahead. I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead and ask a question.
So, sir, in many news it is said that people had sympathies with Taliban as well as hatred for the Americans. So is that true?
Adiba, would you like to address that question? What Parth is saying is that in many news pieces, it's actually suggested that people support the Taliban and actually hated the US government in in Afghanistan. What are your views on that?
First of all, there are so many of actually, so many provinces in Afghanistan is still out of media outlet coverages. First of all, I have to highlight this because all the concentration is in Kabul, and the countrysides, so many areas like the provinces in north, south, like it barely happens that a media journalist or a storyteller travel to the countrysides and spread information about this to the people, to the international community, and to address his question, usually, of this media in general does not spread right information about Afghanistan and what's happening there. It's all of if you want to talk about if you want to know the reality about what's happening in Afghanistan, you have to sit with a local and talk to them, whether with someone who has been living there and who has their connections. And because media outlets now, it's the way there are certain numbers of media outlets who are working in Afghanistan, but still, when there is a community who is, like the Taliban are there and they are kind of dominant, all the media agencies, it's like they have to approve the information through Taliban, and then it has to be approved by them, and then it has to be spread like Tulu News and so many. I don't want to address exactly which agencies, but I'm coming from a media agency background. I know whether this is how it's being going on. It's being processed. The information is being processed until it's spread through the media. This is a part of the problem, I think. That's why so much of information now is in favor of those who have occupied our country, I think.
Right. Adiba, I think I totally agree with you. Honestly speaking, it's often said that history is written by the victors. What I can tell you that is in the present, well, the news media in some countries is unfortunately dictated by the rulers.
Have you heard, we saw that there were several journalists, they belonged at lot rows, and they are actually so active. They're photographer, they're journalists, those who were covering the protest of women on the streets.
Right.
They were gradually bitten.
Right. Absolutely. We read about that. Yes, Adiba, that was.
These are the main problems, and what does not allow the information to be directed to the right way. I think those are the main reasons.
Sure, we'll take another question addressed to Sadika. Thank you so much for that. Well, the truth is, unfortunately, we do not. The media is definitely compromised at this point in time in Afghanistan. When we're talking about people's safety and their inability to get to the airport, to move out, I think it's only safe to state that what's coming out of the nation in the media is going to be very, very protected and fabricated. There might be supporters of the Taliban. Nobody can probably disagree with that. But to say that the entire populace is happy with the current situation would be extremely wrong. Let's have the delegate of GAC UNICEF asking a question. Zadika, we'll address it to you. Go ahead, GAC delegate.
Yes, I'd like to ask is that I had read in an article, a piece from one of the media agencies, that children in Afghanistan are made to, in their schools, are forced to, not exactly forced, but are made to study the curriculum provided by the Taliban and are given military training from the ages of 13 to 17. Is that true?
Sadika, would you like to address that question? Sadika, Adiba. Yes, Sadika, go ahead. Yes.
I like you to repeat the question because
Right.
it's some cut out. Couldn't understand.
I'll just repeat it for you. Sadika, what the student is asking is that somewhere in the news, the student read that all the students in Afghan schools under the Taliban are forced to study only the curriculum provided by the Taliban, only the coursework provided by the Taliban, and are forced into military training between the ages of 13 to 17. Is this true?
So there was a news going on today. It was saying that the Taliban is working on a constitution and changing a lot of things, and but that they didn't confirm it. It is not confirmed. And in these schools, they did remove a few subjects. One of this is I think I don't know how to call it, Vatan Dosti. It's like about the country, like homelands, and love your homeland, and it's more about the history. So they did stop that subject to not be taught in the school, but the result, no, they didn't change the whole curriculum to be the curriculum they want to. So now the boys school from 7th grade to 12th grade just started today. And so they will follow the curriculum they were following in the past for now. So in the future, we don't know. But about the military, there is no confirmed news about it.
Thank you so much for that,
Thank you so
Sadika.
much.
Thank you. We'll entertain about 3 or 4 more questions at maximum. It is, to be honest, at this point in time, it's 12:44 at night on Friday or Saturday early morning for both Munir and Sadika. And of course, Adiba is in Saturday morning in India, but we're not going to keep Munir and Siddiqa waiting too long. We'll definitely entertain a few more questions. There are students who are literally waving their hands so that they can ask a question. I'm glad, that you all have been able to sensitize them, and they'd probably be able to take movements forward for helping all of those in need in Afghanistan. But yes, let's go ahead. G20 Committee 1 USA.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask that people actually believe and they say that US has been supporting Afghanistan against terrorism. But it's a well-known fact that Taliban issue is not new, and Taliban wanted to invade Afghanistan since the very beginning. So how supportive was the USA towards Afghanistan to protect them from a Taliban? Did they take some actions, or how was the situation?
Munir, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, sure. So one issue that we have to understand is that no one is going to stick long, to provide you free food, free military, free medicine, free salary. One day or the other, they have to leave. One day or the other, US had to leave, and it was for the Afghans who had to take control of everything. Taliban was trying to get power from the day they were ousted, from 2001. So they were regrouping, retreating, trying to find sources of funds, trying to find supporters within the government. within the international community, within the neighbors of Afghanistan, enemies of Afghanistan, friends of Afghanistan. You know, they were just trying to find a way how they can actually get popular. And the US gave them that platform. You know, they were merely terrorists. Everybody was accepting them as a terrorist. They're still in the terrorist list of the US, a lot of them. The cabinet that they has announced recently, 50%, more than 50% of them are in the blacklist. So, but the US and the international community gave Taliban a stage where they can have an office, where they can have a political representation, where they can have an office to lobby with people. You know, once you give that to them, then there's no way that you can actually think that they will get they'll become more powerful. They ignored the Afghan government. They ignored the Afghan people. They ignored the Afghan women. Whenever there was any negotiation, there was only one or two women in that negotiations. Whenever there was a discussion on key issues, there was no involvement of women. There was no involvement of the minorities or those who have been affected by the Taliban. None. So you can say that USA has been supporting Afghanistan for the past 20 years, but so they themselves actually multiplied that 20 years into zero within the past few months. That's it. I mean, that's the whole conclusion you can get from this. That's actually my point of view, and most of the analysis also say that even the US people think that they've multiplied the whole thing to zero. Now they're back again with the Taliban. They ousted the Taliban and they put back the Taliban.
Right. So in fact, adding to what Munir is saying, I'd like to just mention that, frankly speaking, at a geopolitical level, the situation that has taken place for the US is an unmitigated disaster. It's an absolute disaster. They have not only put the Taliban back into power, I mean, whatever has taken place over the past 20 years, but they've spent billions of dollars, lost a lot of lives, also caused civilian casualties in the process. And honestly, they have nothing to show for. And it's not the current president's fault. It's something that's gone on across multiple years.
Exactly. That's also one of the issue with the US, with the US policymakers, is that in every 4 years they change their administration. Whenever a new administration comes, they have to come with a new policy.
Right.
There was this estimation by different groups that the US have spent more than $300 million per day in Afghanistan on average.
Yes.
So that's, you know, that's just a waste of money.
And frankly speaking, what I'd like to state is that all of these analysts also mentioned that at the end of the day, if there is a nation that is coming to another nation, they are coming with their own vested interests in mind. You know, honestly speaking, all of us know that the United States of America does not enter into a country without vested interests. So they definitely had their interests in mind. They were there to safeguard their interests. At the end of the day, once their interests were safeguarded to an extent where they felt that, you know, this is not going to be a source of trouble for them, they probably moved out. But you have to give them credit for the fact that they did try to do a lot of different things in the entire region of Afghanistan. They had equipped the forces in Afghanistan too, who unfortunately were not in a situation to protect themselves. A lot of them, in fact, unfortunately, the president in himself, in my opinion, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, moved out, which actually totally opened the doors of Kabul to the Taliban.
Just to add on this a bit so that people don't get confused. So if the US was there, we don't blame the US now. We don't blame Pakistan, we don't blame India, we don't blame Russia, we don't blame China, because they were there for their own interest. Everybody will go to another country for their interest. But what happened was that our own leaders have betrayed us. They actually didn't allow the soldiers to resist. I hear stories from the command centers that they were not allowed to fight. They were forced to give their weapons. They were forced to surrender. They were the army. The soldiers were not ready to surrender. They were fighting with their commanders that they will not surrender. They were crying, but they had to surrender. They were ordered to surrender in different provinces. So if I say that a military command post or a military headquarter in North Afghanistan was equipped to fight for another year with Taliban without any support, without any backup. They could fight because they had that much ammunition, they had that much food, they had that much cash, they had that much weapons, but they didn't fight. They just, left everything. Because so now there is this speculation that it was all designed that way. The president that we had, he fled the country with millions of dollars. That's what the reports say. So he maybe intentionally have done this, but nobody knows that for now. So we're just trying to gather up different information as what was the cause. But yeah, I don't blame any country for this. I just blame our own people, our own leaders, those who were in charge of everything. They just left.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Munir. Let's take a question from G20 UAE. Delegate, go ahead. We'll keep the answers a little brief so that we can entertain another 4 or 5 questions. Sadiqa, I hope, Munir, I hope both of you don't mind staying for another 10 minutes.
Yeah. So, has anybody of you have heard? Has any of you have heard of like the Panjshir resistance? Like it's led by the vice president of Afghanistan and is the son of like an Afghan freedom fighter, Ahmad Massoud. They're all fighting for liberation of Afghanistan. They're like they represent the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, not the Islamic Emirates. So like, what do you think about them?
Right. He's asking about if you're not able to hear clearly, Adiba, Sadiqa, if one of you would like to address this question. He's talking about the Panjshir resistance under Ahmad Massoud and was asking about your views on it in general. I believe that the former vice president of Afghanistan is also in the Panjshir Valley along with Ahmad Massoud, and there seems to be a resistance which to an extent, I think, is still very much around. Do you think that that will make a difference in Afghanistan?
With my information, be complete on this regard. Actually, yes, Panjshir, so many people misunderstand this. I mean, like in the international community, they think that maybe Panjshir is only standing for that area, for that Panjshir resistance is standing just for their own people, for their own land. What those people they're standing for the entire country. They want to, because this is actually in the middle of all these problems. When all our the leaders they have just betrayed us and then left us. There was this guy Ahmad Massoud, and he stood up actually there. And also at the same time, Ahmed Saleh, and there are some commandos from all over in the country who were so much committed to do their work. They have also joined them there, and what they are fighting is for the right of people. And they have I'm not sure if you have heard the latest speech of Ahmad Massoud. He has clearly spoke there about the entire nation, about that it's not about only Panjshir. You have to, wherever he has just literally announced that wherever they are in Afghanistan, they have to stand and for the right of their own, and they have to speak up and raise awareness, inform all the people all over around the world, because what is happening right now in Afghanistan, it's not something that the world has to be silent for. A huge disaster, a genocide is going on. There is a point here. I haven't highlighted this. I have just highlighted earlier as well that if there is people are being openly killed there, they're being executed, not only in Panjshir, the same as in Daikundi, the same as in Kandahar, the other provinces. While what happens is that there's no media outlet to spread this, to cover those areas and inform the people that there's a genocide going on and people are openly killed there, and the information, and therefore the world is silent yet. I think this is one of the main reasons why we cannot reach the information, because the Panjshir, one of the things that kept us kept the world uninformed about what's going on in Panjshir is because Taliban has banned the areas all around Panjshir, and there is no journalist, even journalists from CNN, from the other media agencies, they're not allowed to get into Panjshir, and they are because of, if they just get in, they can cover everything, they can inform the world that what's going on in Panjshir. But we, through even telecommunications and everything has been disconnected for a few days there, and still it's very limited, restricted. And why? Because it's all banned, and but still there is a little improvement, because and now Ahmad Masood, he has talked with the US lobbyists for lobby, and also but he has been invited to the United Nations. I hope it's gonna go well, and he can get a chance to speak on behalf of Afghanistan there, and I hope it's gonna go well in the future. If my fellows have some more information about this, they can add.
Sadiqa, would you like to elaborate further on this?
Adiba covered most of the things. I personally myself, I do believe that Panjshir resistance will make a difference. Panjshir is hope for all the country, as Adiba mentioned, that they are not fighting only for the Panjshir Valley, they are fighting for the whole nation, for the whole country. So it's, first of all, it's a hope that people are looking at it and saying that, no, our country, the whole country is not under control of Taliban. There are some hope that Masood will fight and will free this country. And that's one thing. The other thing is that we do believe, if because if you see the history, if in every country, in Europe, in US, everywhere, they fought. The two bad people fought with each other, or did you one good person fought, they had war to succeed to have a peaceful country right now. So one thing is that I believe it's the Panjshir resistance will make a difference and will have some impact for the future of our country.
Thank you so much, Sadiqa. I think we have time for one final question. We'll allow the delegate of HPWL, Joe Biden, to go ahead and ask his question. I'm sorry to all those whose questions we weren't able to address.
Thank you so much, Anand. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. So first of all, I wanted to say that hearing these heartbreaking stories from these people is very, very sad, and all we can do is pray for these individuals. And I also wanted to tell you that y'all are heroes. Y'all are brave human beings who are escaping, who had to escape out from Afghanistan, but y'all are speaking up for the people there. And we envy you. And I thank you so much for speaking up for your own country and speaking up for human rights as a whole. My question to you was that we hear media say, we hear China meddling into Afghanistan, America meddling in, and all of these countries meddling in. And I know from my past experience that media is not always 100% accurate. So I wanted to ask an individual like Munir or Munir sir or Sadiqa ma'am, or even ma'am, I wanted to ask that what is stopping the Afghan government from becoming a decent, stable government? Why are they letting all these other countries meddle into them? What is stopping them from becoming a government like any other country? A stable, decent government that can own the land. Like Munir sir said, they are not owning the land, and the soldiers are also not fighting. So why is this? Why? What is the reason for the government not being stable?
Right, we'll go through a quick answer. Munir, could you please address it?
Yeah, so the thing is, I told you in the early when I first started the discussion, I told that the different countries are because the country has been destabilized in the very past. That is why a lot of countries are looking and trying to establish a government that have their support. For example, I'll tell you different stories. If you go back to history, when there was British Raj in India until 1947, there were a lot of government that was installed by the British Raj or by the British in Afghanistan. So they had deals. We have this Shimla agreement. We have this Lahore agreement. There are several agreements that, based on those agreements, we have, the Anglo-Afghan wars, the first war and second war. I'm sure some of you have heard of those wars. That was it in the 19th century. So since then, they have been trying to, trying to do everything that a government should be in Afghanistan that would do a favor to them, whenever the British wanted to install a government, so they would pay to a rival. So if there's a government, say A, the person A is the king, so they would fund the person B. They would give them money, they would give them, a lot of things to fight with person A, because it was a tribal area where there was different, tribal leaders, chieftains and all those. So they were fighting with each other. So that thing takes roots from there. When there was Soviets in the 1960s and 70s. So we were a communist country. Afghanistan was a communist country. It was a totally communist nation. The government was a communist state for I think 2 decades, more than 2 decades. And it was supported by the Soviets. But because Soviets had issues with the US had to fund the Mujahideen. So they funded Mujahideen for like $1 billion per month. They give them Stinger missiles. They give them high equipped weapons to fight with the Soviets. So they actually fight with the Soviets, and Soviet left Afghanistan in 1989, I think. And then the Soviet collapsed. So the work by the USA was done. So they have achieved what they wanted. That they told even the same wordings that time, that we have achieved what we wanted in Afghanistan. Now we don't care about Afghanistan. The same thing is happening now. The Biden administration is saying that we have achieved what we were there for. So they are not there for nation building. So that is the reason why Afghanistan is being used by different powers. India has its stake in Afghanistan. India fears that if there's a government that is working for the favor of Pakistan, then Afghanistan might be used against India, right? So it's a common sense. Pakistan was not in support of the previous government because it was very close to India. And Russia was not happy with the previous government because it was very close to the US. Iran was not happy with the previous government because they were close with the US. I mean, you can say that, right? So Russia, now who will have a stake in the future government? China, Pakistan, Iran, and Russia. That's what they are there. They will be the first countries who will recognize Taliban as a government, one way or the other. Either they will not accept it on international level, but they will work with them. They have embassies in Kabul. No other country have embassy in Kabul except Pakistan, China, Russia, and Iran. They have running embassy in Kabul. Their diplomats are in Kabul. Other countries have left. Everyone has left except these 4 countries. now. So see, these things are changing based on different scenarios. Now, the current government, or whatever we call them, even if they're Talib, but they actually control Afghanistan. They are support. They are being favor. They're in favor of Pakistan. They are in favor of Iran. They are in favor of China. They are in favor of Russia. Why? Because they need international legitimacy, and these people can give them.
Right. Thank you so much, Munir. Thank you.
Those are the reasons that we have this destabilized nation in Afghanistan. One of the reasons, I can say.
Thank you so much, Munir. Thank you so much for that view. Honestly speaking, in conclusion to this panel discussion, what I would like to say as the moderator is one can only hope that Afghanistan stops being a source for different countries to run their own vested interests and becomes a place where the governments can genuinely and actually work for their people. That's something that's very important, because at the end of the day, what we read in the news is what is taking place at a political level. We understand that the US has fled and Taliban has come in, and Pakistan is supporting the Taliban, or Iran still has an embassy. But at the end of the day, what we really don't get to hear is stories such as those which are unfortunate of Siddiqa, of Munir, of Adiba, who have had to flee Afghanistan, who don't know whether they'll get to go back to Afghanistan in due course of time. And honestly speaking, who have left half their families and half their life there. Uprooting your life in this kind of a situation is never easy. And one thing that I'd really like to tell all of you is we genuinely pray for you. We are doing our very best in whatever way we can. And if there's any other way in which these students can help Munir, Siddiqa, Adiba, please do keep letting me know so that we can keep furthering drives for the people of Afghanistan. If you ask me as an organization, SkillSphere is least interested about who controls Afghanistan. SkillSphere is most interested in how the people of Afghanistan are, and it is because of my experiences with so many of you from different communities, whether it's Pashtuns, Hazaras, Tajiks, Uzbeks. I have all kinds of friends from Afghanistan, courtesy Munir, and then through the networks. It really just matters to me that the people of Afghanistan are happy. It needs to stop being a place where, unfortunately, people run their vested interests, right from the Soviet Union to the Hikmatyar networks to the Taliban, and now the US, and then the Taliban again. I hope that in due course of time, peace comes back to Afghanistan. There was this very, very interesting incident that I always narrate when I have a formal gathering which has Munir in it. Munir once, he was asked when he was in India, why would you want to go back to Afghanistan? That's what was asked to Munir back then. He was asked, why would you want to go back to Afghanistan? An Indian friend of ours asked him, why would you want to go back? India is such a good nation, and you have all the facilities here. Munir said one line which has stuck with me for my life. Okay, just stuck with me. And I'm sure, Munir, you'll remember what I'm going to say here. Munir said, my country is my country. All right. My country is my country. My home is my home. My people are my people. All right. So it's very important to understand. I don't know, honestly speaking. And if you ask, it would be very, very presumptuous of me to ask Munir, Adiba, or Siddiqa whether they'd want to go back to Afghanistan. At this point in time, there's just so much going on. Rajavardhan Singh Rathod, stop doing that. There is just so much going on in general with respect to Afghanistan at this point in time that it would be very, very presumptuous of me to ask, but I know, and that's something that has stuck with me for life. And I hope that all of you do get what you want in life and your families remain safe. Siddiqa, I pray for your brother. I pray for your mother. Adiba, I pray that you do get to pursue your masters wherever you have to now. And Munir, I pray that all your fellow members do remain safe. And of course, we do get to keep speaking. Honestly speaking, if you ask me, one of my biggest fears, Munir, was that I was not sure when I'd get to speak to you next. And I'm so glad that we not only got to speak, but we got to speak on a forum where we are able to generate more sensitivity towards the issue. And hopefully, Afghanistan becomes a safe place once again. I'd just like
Thank
to
you, Anand. Thank you, Anand. I can say for me and also for Siddiqa and Adiba, we all have been educated in other countries. I have been educated in India and Kyrgyzstan. Siddiqa has been educated in the US. She has traveled the world. She has traveled to Europe. She has traveled to US, so many countries. Adiba and I have been traveling a lot. We were in Europe together 2 years ago. I was in the US last year in the same month. So we never thought of applying for any kind of asylum, applying, for any kind of immigration. no, as said by Sidika and Adiba, we were there, you know, we had a good life. We had a good life. We were building on our careers. We were working. We were, you know, we were providing jobs to others as well. But you never know. Something happens and then everything is vanished. You have to fight for your life. And then maybe in the future I'll go back. Maybe if things go right, I'll go and I'll work there. Now maybe as a Canadian, but I will have to go there because, you know, you can't just, you know, leave everything behind. So that was that can be my ending point for this session. Thank you, Anand, for organizing this. It was nice talking to all of you. I hope we can do this in the future once we are you know, settled down.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sadika. Thank you, Adiba and Munir. There's this word in Dari. Dari is another language that's spoken in Afghanistan. Learned a little bit of Dari from Munir and from the kite runner. One of the very important words in Dari is tashakkur. So tashakkur, Sadika, Adiba, Munir, it means thank you. You all can also say tashakkur.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure, and we do pray for you. Yes.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye, Munir.
Thank you.
Bye, Adiba. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.